There was a time there when few would have ever predicted that everything from a dark drama focusing on a bat villain to a movie about space wizards and cyborgs would have made one hell of a splash at the box office in the end. But that's exactly what they did, proving that you never really know which new slice of cinema is gonna take the world by storm. So I'm Gareth, this is Whatculture, and here are huge box office hits nobody saw coming. District 9. Before his little project by the name of District 9 invaded movie theaters in 2009, you would have struggled to find many out there who'd heard of the name Neil Blomkamp. Outside of working as a VFX artist and 3D animator on the likes of Stargate SG-1 and Dark Angel, the South African-Canadian creator had also directed the Halo Landfall short film project in 2007, used to hype up the incoming Halo 3 game. When a planned Blomkamp-directed Halo movie fell through though, that film's producer, the Lord of the Rings Peter Jackson, opted to turn his attention to one of the director's other pieces of work for a potential new project. And while you'd think that a big screen adaptation of Blomkamp's 2005 short film Alive in Joburg would probably struggle to bring in an audience quite as big as a movie based on one of the most popular video games of the time in 2009, you'd actually be wrong. Following on from a brilliant viral marketing campaign, this $30 million budgeted story of an alien race arriving on Earth, which also masterfully explores themes of racism and xenophobia, went on to bring in a staggering $210 million at the box office. A low-budget sci-fi film this bold, being led by the unknown that was the terrific Sharlto Copley, and directed by the relatively inexperienced Blomkamp, not only making a massive profit but also scooping an Academy Award nomination for Best Picture, was not on anyone's movie bingo card coming into 2009. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. DreamWorks turned their attention to a lovable ginger furball for a spin-off adventure. That project ended up becoming 2011's Puss in Boots, with that Chris Miller-directed swashbuckling spin-off earning $555 million from a $130 million budget and being received far better than that previous Shrek forquel. With it taking a whopping 11 years for the studio to squeeze out a follow-up to this Antonio Banderas starring animated tale though, there were definitely folks out there who wondered if a Puss in Boots sequel would be able to match the prior entry's success, both critically and at the box office. Would there still be an audience out there clamoring to see this booted feline hero trying to keep from running out of lives? Judging from the fact this refreshing sequel slash soft reboot with a $90 to $110 million budget ultimately turned into one of 2022's biggest unexpected hits, earning $485 million after positive word of mouth and scoring an impressive 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, the answer was unquestionably a big ol' yes, showing off some of the most spectacular visuals DreamWorks have unleashed in years, and containing a deeply compelling narrative which dives into everything from mortality to anxiety. The Last Wish was the sort of captivating gift no one honestly expected to unwrap during that year's festive period. Bad Boys for Life. Speaking of those long-awaited sequels many felt would perhaps struggle to really kick ass at the box office, the return of the Bad Boys franchise in 2020 initially felt like little more than another lazy attempt to revive a once popular franchise. One that would no doubt flop worldwide, right? 17 years on from the second installment's rather poor critical reception, and not quite as impressive box office haul though, Bad Boys for Life went on to become a quite remarkable hit. Despite landing in the dreaded month of January in theaters, a period where movies are typically sent out to die, this third entry in the franchise still managed to pull in a huge $426 million on a $90 million budget. Not only did this Adil and Bilal picture become the highest grossing film of the entire series, and end 2020 as the highest grossing movie at the domestic box office, largely due to the global pandemic, it also became the highest rated of the Bad Boys trilogy too. Will Smith and Martin Lawrence's irresistible chemistry, a bunch of glorious action set pieces, and just the right amount of impactful drama sprinkled in, Bad Boys for Life was that rarest and most surprising of things. A franchise revival that both didn't crush your soul and earned all of the money. And with that in mind, I want to know what movie movie are you most excited for this year? Let me know in the comments section down below. The Lego Movie. At first, a film centered around the legendary building blocks that have ruined many a barefooted human's day over the decades, looks like a Hollywood cash grab and nothing more. How could this Warner Brothers animated picture ever be anything other than a feature-length advert for the titular toys? Simple. You hire the masterful Phil Lord and Chris Miller to write and direct, bring in a ton of world-class voice talent, chuck in some properly inspired and vibrant animation, and inject one of the catchiest movie tunes of recent times. That majestic combination of bricks, along with a hilarious and occasionally moving story which focused on the importance of creativity, soon led to the Lego Movie becoming an astonishing hit with critics and audiences, and an absolute monster at the box office, with the 60 to 65 million budgeted family feature earning a hugely surprising $468 million worldwide. That made the Lord and Miller unexpected masterpiece one of the biggest hits of 2014, and even earned it 5th place on the domestic box office rankings that year, beating Peter Jackson's The Hobbit: The Battle of the Five Armies in those rankings. What could have been a hollow attempt to just move Lego sets turned out to be one of the most refreshing animations of the decade. Put simply, it was surprisingly awesome. Hustlers. 2019 was a year full of box office surprises. Along with the likes of the star-studded Cats and X-Men Dark Phoenix movies unexpectedly flopping spectacularly, there were a few other pictures that eventually stunned the world and turned out to be shockingly hot tickets. The first one that will be covered in this list came in the form of the Jennifer Lopez starring dramedy known as Hustlers, telling the tale of a collection of New York City strippers who go on to rob a bunch of their Wall Street clients. This enthralling picture, based on the real-life New York Magazine article The Hustlers at Scores, didn't just boast a performance from J-Lo which left many feeling an Oscar nomination could be on the horizon, it was also a huge hit at the box office too, making more than 7 times its $20 million budget by the time its theatrical run had reached its end. Lorene Scafaria's uncompromising, empowering, and routinely entertaining STX picture, one also showing off a hell of an ensemble cast, produced a performance nobody honestly saw coming. Cheers for checking out this video today, folks, and if you're enjoying yourself, then hit that subscribe button down below for more Whatculture stuff on your screen. Sonic the Hedgehog. In the wake of one of the most infamous movie trailers of the last decade, it genuinely felt like this one was speeding straight towards disaster. That first look at the incoming live-action Sonic the Hedgehog film in 2019 started off intriguing enough, with a few glimpses of the iconic speed merchant as he sprinted across the screen, getting fans somewhat excited. Then it, or should that be that, happened. The creature eventually known as Ugly Sonic left quite the bad taste in the mouths of both lovers of the Sega legend, and anyone else half curious about this latest attempt to successfully chuck a video game icon onto the big screen. And while Jeff Fowler and the rest of the folks behind the picture were smart enough to alter that horrendous character design for subsequent trailers before the finished film ran into theaters, there were those out there who understandably felt the damage may have already been done. You just can't keep a lovable hedgehog down though. Along with absolutely nailing the character on the second time of asking, enjoyable work from the likes of Ben Schwartz, James Marsden, and a back to his bananas best Jim Carrey, and a number of exhilarating waves of action all helped shoot the $85 to $90 million budget movie to a largely unanticipated $390 million haul at the worldwide box office in early 2020. And the Speedy franchise has not looked back since, throwing out sequels and spin-offs left, right, and center. Joker. Now, it would be silly to suggest that a movie putting one of the most well-known villains in pop culture history front and center wasn't gonna earn a decent amount of dollar at the box office. But while it was a pretty safe bet that this dark and unsettling Joaquin Phoenix starring character study would at the very least make back its budget, and possibly even turn a little profit at the box office, not even the most passionate Joker fan could have predicted the gigantic success story Todd Phillips' 2019 psychological thriller would eventually become. Evidently inspired by the legendary Martin Scorsese's King of Comedy and Taxi Driver, failed clown/comedian Arthur Fleck's compelling descent into madness in a truly bleak Gotham City caught the attention of just about every soul on the planet, bringing in strong reviews and a whole lot of dollar. And in the end, end, this bold DC standalone with a $55 to $70 million budget didn't just make its money back, it went on to become the first ever R-rated movie to cross $1 billion at the box office, and the most profitable comic book movie of all time. An undeniably captivating Phoenix even took home the Academy Award for Best Actor too. Naturally, all of that unforeseen financial and critical success set the stage for an inevitable sequel, a much more anticipated follow-up dancing into cinemas with a reported $200 million budget this time around. That's quite the rise. Elemental. There was a time there when a Pixar movie making a massive splash and bringing home a few $100 million at the box office was about as inevitable as that big ball of fire in the sky rising every morning. But the last few years haven't been too kind to the legendary studio. Following on from Onward's time in theaters being cut short by the pandemic, that 2020 film wasn't able to make back its budget. Soul, Luca, and Turning Red would then all land straight on Disney+. But the $200 million Toy Story spin-off that was Lightyear would then shockingly crash and burn as Pixar returned to theaters in 2022, making just $226 million worldwide. It seemed to be more of the same for the once unstoppable animation studio when Elemental initially dropped last year. With that story set in a world where elements walk and talk and occasionally evaporate, also looking to be doomed after bringing home a disappointing $29.6 million on its opening weekend. However, strong word of mouth helped keep this gorgeously animated and heartwarming rom-com from going under, and Elemental gradually went on to surprise everyone and become one of 2023's sleeper hits. Despite looking like it was destined to become one more Pixar theatrical flop, this $200 million movie refused to stay down, kept bringing in the money despite competition from films like Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and eventually became a profitable success. It remarkably ended its run with almost $500 million earned at the box office after that properly disastrous start. What a turnaround! John Wick. He may be one of the most celebrated action stars on the planet today, but it was a very different story for the great Keanu Reeves back in 2014. At that stage in his career, the Matrix and Speed actor wasn't exactly a bankable box office attraction. Sure, he'd experienced some success with those aforementioned features, but the early 2010s were a bit of a rough time for Reeves, as he starred in such forgettable duds as 47 Ronin, Man of Tai Chi, and Generation His next outing by the name of John Wick sadly didn't appear to be a career saver either, with that film's first trailer making this Chad Stahelski directed picture look like yet another generic actioner set to be added to Reeves' ever-growing collection of box office/critical failures. What followed though was one of the most thrilling and inspired action thrillers of the last decade, and thanks to that lackluster marketing, this hard-hitting, at times gloriously nuts, and consistently stylish quest for revenge in the wake of the titular hitman's dog being shockingly murdered ultimately defied expectations when it burst into cinemas, going down an absolute treat with both audiences and critics. A hugely unexpected $86 million haul for the $20 to $30 million budgeted first outing for Mr. Wick, then made a sequel a bit of a no-brainer really, and the rest was ass-kicking history. Star Wars. A long time ago in a galaxy not that far away at all. The idea of a film about space wizards trying to stop the forces of evil from taking over the galaxy didn't exactly seem like a bona fide hit just waiting to happen. George Lucas had poured his heart and soul into bringing his beloved Star Wars to life, managing to somehow convince 20th Century Fox to fund his epic space opera, after just about every other studio in Hollywood turned down this idea they clearly sensed was a flop just waiting to happen. But after showing an early cut of what eventually became one of the biggest blockbusters in cinema history to a few of his movie-making pals, Lucas told a Q&A in 2015 that the majority of them had the response of, "Poor George, what were you thinking?" All except one Steven Spielberg, who boldly claimed this movie right here was going to be the biggest movie in history, being proven right and then some when the film eventually released. Spielberg's Star Wars prediction ultimately came true, as this fantastic adventure made for $11 million eventually caught everyone by surprise, and became the fourth highest grossing movie of all time after adjusting for inflation. Even George Lucas didn't think he had a hit on his hands before his film dropped in 1977. But Star Wars would eventually bring home an incredible $503 million in its initial run in theaters, and kick off a series that would dominate our own galaxy for years to come. The Beekeeper. Hands up anyone who had a junky Jason Statham starring John Wick knockoff as the highest grossing film for the first 2 months of 2024. I know I didn't. The surprisingly entertaining David Ayer directed actioner slunk into cinemas this past January, with little hype amid a mediocre marketing campaign and title which many struggle to take seriously. Can't imagine why. However, the box office might of the dad movie evidently should not be underestimated, as amid unexpectedly positive reviews from most critics, the film has just crossed the $150 million mark globally. Against its sensible $40 million budget, this is a major win and proof that Statham remains one of the few action star brands capable of selling a movie himself. It's an especially unexpected haul given that, for all of the film's comparisons to the first John Wick, it's made considerably more than that film did, $86 million. And isn't that far off what John Wick Chapter 2 pulled in, which is $174.3 million. In short, The Beekeeper 2 is definitely gonna happen. Who could have seen any of this coming? Paranormal Activity. If you thought that the astronomical success of 1999's seminal found footage film The Blair Witch Project, which grossed $248.6 million against a shooting budget of just $60,000 was a one-off, well, not quite. Paranormal Activity was originally shot by filmmaker Oren Peli in his own home for a mere $15,000, and after premiering at the Screamfest Horror Film Festival in 2007, eventually made its way into the hands of Steven Spielberg. You know that guy? Leading Paramount to acquire distribution rights and plan a modest theatrical release. Paranormal Activity launched in September 2009 in just 12 US cinemas. Because each of these screenings sold out, Paramount rapidly expanded the film's release both domestically and around the globe, with it opening wide just 2 weeks later. By the end of its run, this micro-budget found footage romp had netted an awesome $194.2 million, almost triple that of the considerably higher profile horror sequel Saw 6 released shortly after. Paranormal Activity's unthinkable commercial performance made it one of the most successful films of all time in terms of cost-to-profit ratio, leading to an inevitable glut of sequels which have collectively grossed almost $900 million on a total of $28 million budget. Just let that sink in. Pirates of the Caribbean. It cannot be understated how much negativity there was surrounding the release of Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl back in 2003, with Disney spending $140 million adapting one of their theme park rides into a huge blockbuster fronted by Johnny Depp, who, while respected, was hardly a reliable draw at the time. All while the pirate genre was dead in the water, the intense skepticism was at least understandable, but Pirates ended up defying most all expectations, scoring $654.3 million globally and becoming the 4th highest grossing film of 2003, beating out the highly anticipated likes of Terminator 3: Rise of the Machines, The Matrix Revolutions, and X-Men 2. What a year! Pirates' success was a perfect storm of factors, really. A gorgeous, entertaining trio of leads, combined with outstanding production values, an amazing Hans Zimmer score, and a script that was both fun and overflowing with personality. Word of mouth kept it chugging along throughout the summer, where it dominated screens for almost an entire 2 months, ensuring that Disney now had a new cinematic IP in their war chest, one which has made them over $4.5 billion at the box office to date. Anyone but you. In recent years, it appeared the theatrical rom-com was basically dead, with studios opting to send most of these projects direct to streaming, amid the feeling that audiences wouldn't leave their house for uncinematic fare, no matter how charming the leads might be. Basically, the prevailing wisdom was that romantic-themed movies would only succeed on the big screen if they had a major genre element, like 2022's action-adventure throwback The Lost City. But that was proven categorically wrong by last year's Anyone But You, a dead ordinary rom-com with no genre gimmick whatsoever, starring Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell. Even with its sensible $25 million budget, expectations were low in the weeks leading up to its release, many feeling that the box office oxygen would be sucked up by a crowded slate of higher-profile releases, namely Wonka, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, Migration, The Color Purple, and Ferrari. However, Anyone But You has proven itself an indefatigable box office smash, crossing the $200 million mark worldwide, grossing more than prominent 2023 films such as The Equalizer 3, Insidious: The Red Door, Scream 6, and Killers of the Flower Moon. Take that, Marty! For a relatively by-the-numbers entry into the genre, and one touting an R rating no less, that's a phenomenal achievement, surely serving as a testament to the star power of Sydney Sweeney and irresistible charms of Glenn Powell. As such, expect more straight-up rom-coms to get theatrical releases, all while Sweeney and Powell are already looking into working together again. Top Gun Maverick. In the lead-up to Top Gun Maverick's release, there was considerable skepticism about the film's ability to be anything beyond a modest box office success, with many believing the $180 million tentpole sequel would post modest returns in the $400 to $500 million range. After all, with the 36 years between movies, it was reasonable to assume that younger audiences simply didn't give a damn about Top Gun, and with older demographics not returning to cinemas in droves on the other side of COVID, a path to blockbuster supremacy seemed blocked on all sides. Despite this, Maverick shocked the world, going on to gross an astonishing $1.496 billion worldwide, making it both the second highest grossing film of 2022 behind only Avatar: The Way of Water, and the highest grossing film of Tom Cruise's entire career. And think of the career he's had. Maverick managed to so impressively deliver a worthwhile legacy sequel, which both satisfied longtime fans of the original and onboarded those who'd never seen it, while pairing Cruise with a cast of charming younger talents. Cruise and director Joseph Kosinski also did a superb job selling the film as an audio-visual experience you absolutely had to watch in the cinema, because for most it simply wouldn't be the same at home. The only thing more stunning than Maverick tearing up the box office so ferociously, it ended up with 6 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay. We all felt the need for speed in the end. Get Out. On paper, Jordan Peele's directorial debut, Get Out, seemed like it'd be a modestly decent success, given the strong reviews from its premiere at the Sundance Film Festival and mere $4.5 million budget. Horror rarely fails commercially, but nobody could have anticipated that Peele's satirical horror would end up grossing $255.4 million worldwide, more than 55 times its budget. Get Out's unique premise and mysterious must-see nature allowed it to become something of a viral phenomenon, no matter that it had no major names or existing IP behind it. Just a tantalizing idea, smartly written, sharply directed, and well acted. All the same, for a totally original movie to make more money than fellow 2017 releases such as Alien Covenant, Paddington 2, and John Wick Chapter 2 is pretty damn astonishing. With Get Out's commercial and award success, Peele established himself as a branded auteur in his own right, whose name alone has gotten butts in seats for his subsequent projects Us and Nope, both of which were also hits. Bring on the next piece of Peele, I say. My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Over 20 years later, box office analysts are still scratching their heads over the mind-boggling commercial stamina of low-budget rom-com My Big Fat Greek Wedding, which ended up grossing an insane $368.7 million worldwide against a mere $5 million budget. The film's initial limited release in April 2002 proved successful enough that IFC Films decided to give it a wide rollout in the summer, and as a testament to the power of positive word of mouth, this quirky rom-com without any major stars became a genuine global phenom. The most fascinating statistic of all, though, is that it became the highest grossing movie to never hit the #1 spot in North America, a record it held for 14 years until Sing took the crown in 2016, once again proving that belated comedy sequels generally struggle to recapture the original success. Both the second and recent third movies scored only a fraction of the predecessor's box office glory, netting $90.6 million and $39.1 million each on considerably higher budgets. Toy Story. Silly though it might sound in retrospect, the release of Toy Story was nervously anticipated by many inside Disney, given that there was no guarantee audiences at large would connect with an entirely computer-generated animated film. But Pixar's feature debut became an overnight pop culture monolith, girded by its groundbreaking 3D animation, incredible premise and script, and of course the note-perfect performances from the ensemble voice cast. Though Apple co-founder Steve Jobs, who served as an executive producer on the project, considered that $75 million worldwide would make it a modest hit, Toy Story blew past all expectations and finished at $365 million. This made it the second highest grossing film of 1995, sitting less than $1 million behind Die Hard with a Vengeance, and beating out the decidedly more hyped likes of GoldenEye, Pocahontas, Batman Forever, Apollo 13, Casper, Beekeeper and Waterworld. From there, the series' legacy barely even needs to be stated, with the 4 Toy Story films and spin-off Lightyear having collected a total of $3.27 billion in ticket receipts. Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle. If you asked just about anyone how the belated Jumanji sequel/soft reboot in disguise would perform even just a month before its December 2017 release, there was a pronounced air of negativity, with most expecting it to pull mediocre at best numbers. Even if you ignored the uninspired marketing, there was serious hand-wringing about the film's mere existence following the passing of original star Robin Williams. And above all else, it was releasing just 5 days after inevitable box office monster Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Yet despite so much working against it, Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle went on to make $995.3 million, edging out Spider-Man: Homecoming to become the 5th highest grossing film of that year. Now, there are a few reasons for Jumanji's unexpected success. First and foremost, it's a surprisingly good movie that was well received by critics and general audiences alike. It's also been theorized that the polarizing response to Star Wars: The Last Jedi did it a world of favors. For though The Last Jedi was a major success by any logical metric, its $1.334 billion haul was still a massive $700 million drop from The Force Awakens' eye-watering $2.071 billion cume. Still ridiculous numbers, both of them. Much of that shortfall, though, evidently benefited Jumanji, which to casual moviegoers likely seemed to be the safer of the two options: Crocodile Dundee. And finally, we have Crocodile Dundee, the Australian Paul Hogan starring comedy, which took the world by storm throughout the latter half of 1986. The definition of a sleeper hit, Crocodile Dundee not only tore up the box office in its native country, but was also a smash hit around the globe, grossing almost $175 million alone in North America, while maintaining the #1 spot for a jaw-dropping 9 weeks. When it was all said and done, this modest comedy with no stars made for less than $10 million grossed $328 million, ensuring that the only film to beat it in 1986 was Top Gun, while it effortlessly made more money than Aliens, Platoon, Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home, and The Karate Kid Part 2. Collectively, the 3 theatrically released Crocodile Dundee films have netted over $600 million on a combined budget of less than $50 million. One last time then altogether, who could have ever seen that